Hello and welcome everybody. First of all, I'd like to just say thanks for joining. We're going to go ahead and kick off our event for today. This is our first ever Facebook Live KingFisher demo experience. So if you ever thought about purchasing a new piece of lab equipment, it'd be a challenging quest, right? Because sometimes there's a lot of information out there and it can be difficult to gather all this. In addition, it can be a very time-consuming process. My name is Christian Kis, and I'm a Senior Product Specialist at Thermo Fisher with our Sample Prep Group. This also includes our KingFisher line of instruments for doing automation of this type of process. Now, I understand there are a lot of options on the market, and it can be difficult to navigate through these choices. In addition, just overall, a complex field to navigate. So at Thermo Fisher, we're going to give you the opportunity to evaluate the KingFisher system. You know, kick the tires a little bit, give you the opportunity to try them out and see if they benefit your workflow. For today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the KingFishers, what they can do, and just give you a snippet of information as a teaser for what the KingFisher demo experience is going to be like. Now, don't be shy. Feel free to ask questions and provide comments in the comment section below. We're also going to have a moderator online to help answer some questions. Now, if we don't address those during the course of the presentation, we're going to try and address some of those at the very end as well. Now, obviously, we are not in a real lab setting. We're also not going to process any real samples. However, after today's session, if you feel like this is the instrument for you or you'd like to check it out, well, give us a call. Better yet, check us out at the link below where you can sign up and register. What we'll do is we'll set an appointment, discuss your needs, and we'll set up your very own personalized KingFisher demo experience. We'll bring out some kits and chemistry, the unit, and provide the plastics so we can go through that whole process for you and customize your sample prep on the KingFishers. So your science obviously depends on the isolation of targets, and the KingFishers are great for this because they can be used to isolate a variety of different targets. Well, in general, they can be categorized into 3 different types. And so if you'd like to do nucleic acid, maybe you need to isolate DNA or RNA from a sample, or maybe total nucleic acid, or even just do a plain and simple PCR cleanup. Well, we can obviously do all of that, right? Well, we can also do protein work. This is pretty easy to do, custom work, but maybe you need to isolate protein fragments like phosphopeptides, for example, or maybe a tag protein like a His tag. We can even do immunoprecipitations if you like. Certainly can go on the instrument. As an extension of the protein work, we can also do whole cell work, right? So maybe you want to, for example, isolate T cells from a blood sample. Well, we can do that as well. Pretty much everything is simply going to be based on having the right magnetic bead-based chemistry available. So as long as you have that, we can put it onto the instrument. Now, nucleic acid tends to be kit-based. And so a lot of that, simply open up the box, we put it on the unit, and you go ahead and process your sample. Protein work, on the other hand, can be more custom with what you need to do. Well, one of the advantages of the KingFisher systems is the fact that we give you the software that comes with the unit. And this essentially opens up the entire process for you so you can customize and optimize anything you need to do. What does that mean? Well, for nucleic acid stuff, you're actually not stuck with a single kit protocol. If you need to modify or optimize, maybe scale something, or just change the process because you have a very unique sample that's a little more difficult to work with, well, we simply have to go into the software and create that custom application. Proteins, as we mentioned, typically tend to be more custom-based anyway, so what we can do is go into the binded software and again, just script that process to really mimic what you're doing on the bench and put that on the KingFisher as well so you can process your protein samples. So before we move on, what I'd like to know is what are some of the craziest, weirdest samples that you've worked with or could like to work with in the past? All right, we'll go ahead and get some of that information later. But over the last 8 years, I've actually come across a lot of different types of samples. And so I really want to see what you're looking to put on the instrument. Maybe look for a new challenge, right? We'd like to see what else we can put on there that maybe we haven't come across before. But share your thoughts in the comment section below, and we'll take a look at some of these later just to see if you do have something unique for me. Alternatively, well, just go ahead and let us know at the link we presented earlier, and we can go ahead and set up your appointment right away. So when doing purification, there are a couple of different ways of doing things. And most people are going to start with what is a column-based purification, right? It's pretty easy, straightforward to do. This is also the least effective method. And that is because this is what I call a single pass system, right? You're going to take your sample, run it through one time on the column, your washes, run it through one time, elution, run it through one time. There really is no mixing going on, and it can be difficult to optimize or even change what you're doing on this. In addition to that, maybe your sample ends up clogging the column, or your target of interest just has a hard time coming off and you end up losing your sample. Lastly, if you're going to do this manually, right, it's a pretty tedious process, so it can be very time consuming. But all of those things add up to being a lot of day-to-day and person-to-person variability, and so again, it can be difficult to optimize something like this. Now moving on to the next step, rather than using columns, people can use magnetic beads. And so it's a lot similar to columns, except in this case, instead of using a silica-coated column, we're going to use silica-coated beads. Now it's a little bit better than columns because we can take that tube and we can go like that, right? So we've added a mixing and a time element involved in that process, and this actually enhances your purification. Now once you're finished binding your target, you typically would use a magnet to pull your beads down to the bottom of the tube. Or, well, I guess you can use good old-fashioned manual centrifugation if you want. But after your beads are pulled down, you're going to use pipetting motion to move your liquids in and out. So it's basically a liquid movement process. Well, therein lies the caveat as well. How close do you get the pipette tip to your beads to make sure you're moving out all of your contaminating solution, but at the same time, if you get the pipette tip too close to your sample, then, right, there go your beads. And if you're pulling your beads out, you're likely also losing some of your sample. So once again, even though it's better than columns, it can still be a little difficult to optimize. And the KingFisher do use magnetic beads, but we basically flipped the entire principle upside down. So rather than being a liquid movement process, the instrument is going to be a bead mover instead. This one change in everything offers all the benefits of the system. So the way that it works is we're still going to bind our target sample in the solution, but rather than using a magnet to pull those beads down, we're going to have a magnetic rod on the instrument that is now covered with a plastic tip cone to simply drop down through your solution, gradually collecting the beads just on the outer surface of the tip of the tip cone. Well, once you've collected all of your beads, you're simply going to move them over to the next solution. You can have the instrument remove the magnet. This essentially lets go of the beads, right? So now they're free floating in solution. Then you can have the tip cone move up and down through the solution. And what this causes is a nice vigorous mixing motion, a lot of volume displacement. And once again, this is going to enhance the purification process. Well, when you're done with all of your mixing, the magnet simply goes back to the tip cone. And we're just going to repeat this process over and over again until we end up with our purified product at the end. The fact that we're removing the beads offers typically two big benefits. Number one is going to be better purity. Number two, better yield. Better purity, because remember, we're a bead moving system, right? And so we're not moving any of those liquids from step to step. And that means ultimately you are going to get a fairly clean product at the end. Now the other thing, better yield, right? We are moving the beads from step to step. Well, remember I said we give you the software. If you're trying to optimize your protocol and you consistently see beads being left behind, well, guess what? We can go back into the software and maybe we just need to change how many times the magnet goes into the solution. Or maybe we just need to tell it to hang out there a little while longer and collect those beads. But the bottom line is that can be optimized, and so you end up with a nice purified product at the end and not losing any of your sample. So within the KingFisher line of instruments, we actually have 3 different types of units, just really depending on the type of throughput that you have. Our entry-level system is going to be the KingFisher Duo Prime. It comes with 2 different types of magnetic heads. There's going to be a 6-pin, basically our large volume format. So maybe you want to process blood, saliva, plasma, or something like that, up to 6 samples at a time. It also comes with a 12-pin magnetic head. So for lower volume samples, but again, up to 12 samples at a time. Great entry-level place to start. The KingFisher Flex is our next step up. This is basically our high throughput model, and the equivalent is where on the KingFisher Duo you can do up to 6 samples at a time high volume. The KingFisher Flex you can do up to 24 samples at a time high volume. KingFisher Duo up to 12 samples at a time in the low volume head. The KingFisher Flex up to 96. So you've greatly increased the amount of throughput that you can get through automation. Now the KingFisher Flex is meant to run as a standalone, and what that typically means is you're going to prep your plates, have them ready, pull up your protocol, load them onto the instrument, and then you simply walk away. The unit does all the work for you after that. Now the KingFisher Presto is the last one in the line, and what this offers is a fully automated solution. So remember I said the KingFisher Flex, you have to prep your plates in advance, and there are a variety of ways of doing this. Well, with the Presto, it is an integratable unit. So you put it in with a robotic workflow or a liquid handler, and from there, what you have is the liquid handler prepping all of your plates and simply feeding them to the KingFisher Presto. And so this is now going to use bead movement technology, which is always the best, to process all of your sample. Really, it offers you a completely seamless workflow from A to Z without too much hands-on. Now, any of these units, it actually does not matter which one of those you actually demo. They all work exactly the same way, but the key differences simply being the number of samples and maybe the way they handle the plates in the process. So we worked with different types of beads. Oh, got a little note here. Say hi to Lembalani. Hello, glad to have you join us. Oh, and Stephanie too. Can't forget Stephanie, we need you here as well. All right, and working with the KingFisher units, they're originally designed for nucleic acid, and so those beads typically tend to be small. They're easy to work with. The units are great for that, right? And so you can purify your DNA, your RNA, PCR cleanup, whatever you need to do. Well, over the years, we've learned to work with our instruments in better ways, and so that means protein beads. A lot of times these can be larger, right? Well, they actually work great on the system, and we simply go into the software to manipulate how we're moving these larger beads. But yeah, we can work with these too. And finally, we have another style of beads that we sell at Thermo Fisher called the agarose beads. It's basically a very large bead, high binding capacity. It's an agarose coated magnetic bead. Well, yeah, we can work with these as well. So we're not really limited with what we can put onto the unit. Again, over the years, we just learned to work with things different ways, and we simply use the software to modify how we're moving the beads through those solutions. So what are the advantages of beads in general? Well, they have a large surface area, right? So that means you can collect quite a bit of material. Just takes a small amount of beads to collect what you need to do. And with beads, it's also pretty easy because you can scale things up or down, right? So modify according to your needs. Remember, we're letting go of the beads in solution too, so this contributes to the efficacy of the process because we can slosh them around as vigorously as we need to and purify them. Different viscosities, well, yeah, we can work with those too. Remember, you have the software, so if you do have more viscous solutions, well, again, we just modify how we're moving the beads through those more viscous solutions. Easy to automate. We're going to put them onto the KingFisher. Not right now. We'll do that for your own personal experience, but obviously very easy to modify. Oh, just a reminder, this is how to sign up for that experience. Suitable for low to high throughput applications. Just another way of looking at all of this, let's just say you have a 96 deep well head on the instrument. You're actually not stuck with doing 96 samples all at one time. Let's say you have one sample, or maybe 12, 48, 72, whatever it might be. All you have to do is fill the wells with reagents for the total number of samples that you have, and that's what you process. You can leave everything else empty. Everything is done the same way today, tomorrow, and next week, and also across the plate. So all that variability and inconsistency is gone. So basically, you control the number of samples that you need to process. And in addition to that, we can also control the volume of the sample itself, right? When you open up a kit for nucleic acids, let's take that as an example. It's going to recommend using so much sample, so much wash buffer, so much elution. Again, you're not stuck with that. All we have to do is go, number one, make sure we have the right size magnetic head for the unit, and number two, go into the software. If we have to modify, we just change the volumes that we need to work with so that we can work with your specific sample volume in a better way. But in the end, completely customizable and optimizable on the units. So the purification workflow, this is also actually not going to change. Whatever you are typically doing on the bench or with any type of chemistry, it's all going to be the same type of principle. And so there may be some pre-homogenization, bead beating going on, but once you have your sample ready, you simply put them into the plate along with the other buffers, your washes and elution and so forth. And when you get that ready, it all goes onto the instrument. Well, the instrument is going to take care of your binding steps, series of washes, and at the end do the elution so that you can recover your purified product. That does not change. Now, regardless of what you put on there, most things are typically going to take less than 60 minutes. In fact, some things, well, we can do it as fast as 20 minutes. But imagine a KingFisher Flex with a 96 format head. You can do 96 samples in an hour or less. Well, how long does it take you to do 96 samples, especially if you're going to do it manually? So we've talked about the principle of what we can do and the concept of the instrument. Well, let's take a look at what these instruments look like, and we'll focus on the KingFisher Flex from here just to give you an idea of what the design is like. Well, we've got a graphical user interface. Oh, that might be a little bit small. Let's change this up a little bit. There we go, that's better. So we have a graphical user interface on the instrument, and very simple. This is simply where the protocols are stored. You call them up and you can run them on the instrument. The arrow keys are used to navigate around the menu. Only a couple of tabs and a few folders. You're not going to get lost. Start, pause, stop. Yeah, they do exactly that. There's actually no secret to the instrument. These are clockwise and counterclockwise buttons, basically to move the turntable in case you need to access plates individually. Now, we're going to move over to the turntable, and in order to do that, well, I'm going to have my invisible assistant remove the plastic covers just so we can see that a little bit better. All right, on the turntable itself, we have 8 spots. Now, each one of these spots is actually going to represent a step in the process. Sample binding, wash, elute, and so forth. Over here on the side is a tip shield. This is a secondary precaution for protecting your samples. And I say secondary because the way this works is that when this is done processing, the tip shield moves underneath. The turntable will rotate to change plate positions, and then this will move. So the magnetic head will process the next plate in the process. Now, secondary because remember, this is a bead movement system, not a liquid mover. So there are actually no liquids to fall off of the tip cone. Now, the magnetic head assembly itself, only 2 parts over here. This is the magnet head itself, which you can swap out, and then this part holds the tip cone. And these move in unison, either together when you want to hold on to the beads, or apart if you just want the tip cone to slosh and mix your beads around. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the plastics for the unit. So we do sell the plastics, or the KingFisher systems, and they are actually important in the process. Now, the tip cones, well, we're the only ones that sell those. So if you buy a KingFisher unit, I kind of have your money for that too. But it's actually important. So the tip cones have a certain shape, and they contribute to the processing of your samples. The plates themselves, you can get a varieties across the market, but they also have those same shapes on the bottom, and they match shapes on the instrument as well. The whole thing is designed to work together to bring you efficient processing of your samples. Now, if you put other plates on there, you're going to have 2 problems. Number one, they don't match up with the tip cone, right? And so you may have a little more difficulty in processing your samples and optimizing. Number 2, well, worst case scenario, you might end up damaging your instrument. We really don't want you to do that. So with the instrument itself, we sell a variety of different magnetic heads just so you can process different volumes, right? And so with 4 different types, when you buy an instrument, KingFisher Flex in particular, you're going to get 1 magnetic head of your choice. It's basically plug and play almost. Quick install, you're up and running, right? Now the other 3 are available as accessories. Again, very easy to swap those out. Your 4 head types, there's going to be a 24 deep well. This is, again, for your high volume processing, up to 5 mils of total processing volume per well in a plate. Okay. Again, and this is good for your blood, plasma, and things like that. Now the 96 deep well, this is the next one. a lot more samples, right? So you can get more done. Well, up to a total of 1 mil total processing volume. So still quite a few sample types that you can work with and again, get a lot done. Now the other two types are also 96 format. There's a Kingfisher head, just lower volume. Maybe you don't need the deep well version. Well, we can accommodate that. And lastly, there's going to be a PCR head. Now the advantage with this is that you can work with PCR plates and elute directly into PCR plates just to go directly in your downstream format. So if you need that, and we can make it work, we'll have that available. You can actually demo any one of these heads, right? You just let us know. We're going to talk about your applications, and then we're going to customize all that in your personalized demo experience. All right, so we've talked about concepts, we've talked about the instrument. I know sometimes that can be a little confusing. So let's actually take a quick look at the instrument just for a brief run, and we'll walk through a little bit of the processing. So let's say you do want to run a protocol on the KingFisher Flex. All you have to do is scroll over to the appropriate folder that has the protocol that you want to run. Once you find it, simply press the start button, and you're pretty much off and running. Now from here, it's going to ask you to load individual plates. And so you simply do what the instrument says. In this case, it will ask for the tip plate first. So you're going to take your tip plate and drop it into the front loading position. You press the start button, it tells the instrument that you've actually done that, and it's going to ask for the next plate in the process. So again, we're going to take our elution plate, that's what it wants, and put it into the front loading position. So one at a time, you're just kind of going to go through the process and gradually load all of your plates onto the Kingfisher unit. Now once you're done, press start one more time, walk away, and you can come back later to your purified material. Now when you start a process, the first thing that it does is a tip comb check. This is to ensure that the tip comb has actually been attached to the magnetic head assembly. If it's not, your protocol will stop. So you ensure that that magnetic head will never touch your sample. Now when it's past that test, you go to your sample and start your binding. You notice the magnet is not in the plastic tip comb. This is simply the tip comb sloshing your stuff around. Once it's done doing all of that mixing, the magnetic head goes back into the tip comb, and this is where it slowly drops down, collecting your beads as it descends through your solution. Now remember, we have complete control over this process. The total number of times that it can go down into your sample, as well as, a little hangout time, just to make sure we're mopping up all of those beads. Now once we're done collecting all of our beads, the magnet head and tip comb together, we want to keep holding on to those beads, right? They're going to come completely out of solution. The turntable will rotate. We'll actually see the tip shield flip underneath during this process. Right? There it goes, protecting our samples. We drop our beads into the next plate in the process and start mixing. Right? Now you'll notice maybe a little bit of a slower speed. We actually have a number of different speeds that you can also program. And so again, customizing to fit your needs. But there's fast, medium, and slow. There's bottom mixes and half mixes. Just program what you need to fit your sample type and to get the kind of purity that you need. Well, for each of the steps, you're pretty much going to be doing the same things. Just moving over, dropping your beads, mixing them, collecting them, and moving on to the next step. So we're going to go ahead and let this finish out, but this is an example of what the Kingfishers do in terms of their processing. So earlier, we asked you to submit some really weird and crazy samples. Let's take a look and see what some of those look like, just to see if you've got something a little more on the unique side for me. All right, we got top 10 crazy sample types. Dolphin blubber. All right, well, I have to say, this is probably going to be a little bit of a unique one. I've worked with fish samples and things like that, but not necessarily dolphin blubber. So if this is you, definitely get in touch because we're going to work with this one. All right, rhino horn. Actually, yes, I worked with a forensic lab to work with this type of material. You simply drill into it, powder it, and then you process it with the DNA kit. So even though it sounds a little weird, yeah, I've worked with it. Fish scales. Yeah, this goes back to working with aquatic species. People do population studies and things like that, especially up there in Canada. Boy, we work with that too. Seawater samples. Yep, work with them too. In fact, work with a group in Florida who are doing coral samples and seawater and just all kinds of things just to see what they can pull out of it. But didn't catch me on this one. Come back to me with that dolphin sample so we can work with that. All right. We were able to answer some questions hopefully earlier. What I'd like to do is just circle back and see if there's anything that we haven't addressed yet. All right, we do have a few. So, first question. I would like to purify bacteria from a soil sample in an oil drilling site. Can you do dirty samples like this? Well, actually, yes. In fact, earlier this year, we launched a series of microbiome chemistry kits. These are designed to work with all types of material to isolate pathogens, bacteria, virus, and so forth. And in fact, we can work with these really dirty samples like soil and even fecal matter. Surprisingly, people actually work with that. What if you want to process more than what you can put into a plate? So if you recall, we mentioned what our maximum processing volume is. Well, yes, we can actually do that through a process we employ called sample splitting. And that is where instead of one sample plate and some washes, we can have 2, 3, or maybe even 4 sample plates in there. We simply combine all of the beads and do one set of washes. But it does allow us to increase the capacity of the instrument and do even more than what a single plate will be able to hold. What if I have more than 8 plates in my process? Well, we talked earlier about the turntable having 8 plates, right? You're actually not limited to that. If you do have more than 8, we simply go back into the software, just like always, and we program whatever we need to do. The instrument and the software are going to prompt you to swap plates out. So if you want, we can do a 50-plate process if that's what it takes to get your material purified. And lastly, I would like a demo. What do I need to do? Well, we've already done it a couple times, so let's give you one more reminder, right? Simply go to our link below and sign up and register, and we're going to set up an appointment so we can discuss what your needs are and arrange for your own personalized demo experience. And again, we're going to bring in a kit, the chemistry, the plastics, even the instrument itself, so we're going to be able to work with you to get this done. And who knows? You might actually see me in your personalized experience working with you to get your process sample. So hope to see you again soon.